Hello and welcome, Minnesota Farah. We are genuinely very happy to have you with us for our daily coverage of the NFL news. Please subscribe to our channel to support our initiative as we bring to you the latest updates from the world of NFL on a daily basis. Now let's dive deep into our news stories.
Welcome to this extensive NFL news roundup, where we dive deep into the latest updates from around the league. So, without further ado, let's kick things off with our first update. 1. Arizona Cardinals Game Day Elevations. The Arizona Cardinals are gearing up for action, and they've elevated RB Corey Clement and DL Ben Still for their game day roster. These elevations could provide a much-needed boost to the team's performance. Now, let's move on to our next update. 2. Atlanta Falcons Game Day Elevations. Over in Atlanta, the Falcons are also making some moves. They've elevated WR Xavier Malone to their game day roster. These roster changes can often be critical in determining the outcome of a game. Now, let's pivot to the Baltimore Ravens for our next piece of news. 3. Baltimore Ravens Injuries and Game Day Elevations. In Baltimore, CB Darrell Worley's shoulder injury has landed him on the injured reserve list. A setback for the Ravens as they navigate their season. On the positive side, they've elevated RB Kenyon Drake and WR Laquan Treadwell for their game day lineup. Now, onto the Buffalo Bills for a couple of significant updates. 4. Buffalo Bills Injuries and Game Day Elevations. The Bills are dealing with some injury concerns. Shaq Lawson's toe injury makes him questionable for the London game against the Jaguars, while LB Von Miller is back from the physically unable to perform list. However, CB Tre'Davious White's Achilles injury has led to him being placed on injured reserve. Additionally, DT Kendall Vickers and CB Jamarcus Ingram have been elevated to the game day roster. In off-field news, WR Stefon Diggs was fined for unsportsmanlike conduct. Now, let's head over to Cincinnati. 5. Cincinnati Bengals Game Day Elevations. The Bengals are looking to bolster their roster for the next game with the elevation of WR Kwame Lassiter II. These decisions can impact the team's strategy and performance. Shifting gears, let's talk about the Denver Broncos and their injury updates. 6. Denver Broncos Injuries. In Denver, the Broncos have activated SPJ Locke from injured reserve. His return could be a game changer for the team as they aim to overcome their early season challenges. Now, it's time to check in on the Detroit Lions. 7. Detroit Lions Injuries and Other News. The Lions are dealing with the uncertainty of RB Jahmyr Gibbs' hamstring injury. He's now doubtful for their upcoming game against the Panthers. In addition, FB Jason Cabinda has been placed on injured reserve, but there's a silver lining with LB Julian Okwara being elevated from IR. In other news, WR Jameson Williams is back in action after being activated from the reserve commissioner exempt list. Next up, we have an injury update from the Green Bay Packers. 8. Green Bay Packers Injuries. The Packers are keeping an eye on RB Aaron Jones, who is questionable for Monday night's game against the Raiders due to a hamstring injury. On a positive note, Elgton Jenkins is set to return to action, and LB Devonder Campbell's ankle injury has ruled him out. Now, let's turn our attention to the Houston Texans. 9. Houston Texans Injuries, Signings, and Roster Cuts. In Houston, Titus Howard and P. Cameron Johnston have been activated from injured reserve, potentially strengthening their lineup. On the transaction front, Derek Rivers joins the practice squad, while DT Taylor Stallworth exits it. We also have some game day elevations to report. LB Garrett Wallow and CB D'Angelo Ross have been elevated to the active roster. Moving along, it's time to focus on the Indianapolis Colts. 10. Indianapolis Colts Injuries, Roster Cuts, and Signings. The Colts have a significant update with RB Jonathan Taylor's activation off the reserve PUP list ahead of Sunday's game against the Titans. This is big news for Colts fans, as Taylor's ankle injury designation has been removed. In transaction news, RB Jake Funk has been cut, but RB Jonathan Taylor has agreed to a lucrative contract extension. That wraps up the news from the Colts, and now let's switch gears to the Jacksonville Jaguars. 11. Jacksonville Jaguars Injuries and Other News. WR Parker Washington's knee injury has led to his placement on injured reserve. In a positive development, Cam Robinson is being activated to the active roster after serving a 4-game suspension. Next, we're heading to Las Vegas for the latest on the Raiders. 12. Las Vegas Raiders Injuries and Fines. The Raiders are keeping a close watch on WR Davante Adams, who is questionable for Monday's game against the Packers. Adams practiced in limited fashion for the first time on Saturday. In injury-related news, CB Nate Hobbs is out, while CB David Long is questionable. On the disciplinary front, DT Jerry Tillery was fined for a late hit out of bounds. That concludes our extensive NFL news roundup for today. Stay tuned for more updates as the NFL season unfolds. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.